God bless America. Hello, everybody. I am the Talk Radio Protege. This is the Protege program. Thank you so much for joining me on this Thursday. I'm getting my weekend started a little early. We'll be out of the office tomorrow, but I've got a video up. It's scheduled. It's going to go live at 6 o'clock tomorrow. Make sure you subscribe if you want to see that one. Today, there are two things that I want to talk about. One is going to be... my first instinct is to just repeat a whole bunch of things that I've said, so we'll get to that in a minute. But the other one, I don't have a bunch of information on, so I don't know if I can spend a lot of time talking about either of these things without getting repetitive or without making a bunch of speculation. Let's just get into it and see what there is to talk about. So first off, there's a government shutdown looming this Friday at midnight. And everybody in Washington, D.C. doesn't want the government to shut down. So we're scrambling to try and put together a budget of some kind. And what has come out can accurately be described as an omnibus. Everybody is getting everything that they want, pretty much. The president's not because, it's Donald Trump. But Democrats are getting what they want. Chuck Schumer is doing cartwheels and backflips in glee over how great this spending bill allegedly is. There's a lot of spending or military spending increases. There's some domestic spending increases as well. There's just a bunch of stuff for a bunch of people. And it's all jammed into this $1.6 trillion spending bill. Naturally, Senator Rand Paul is not happy about it. My first instinct is to not like this bill. And when I say I can't decide whether or not I'm mad about it or not, I think just at a basic level, I'm disappointed. Because we elected people to go to Washington and clean up spending, take care of wasteful things, to really interrogate every dollar, figure out where it's going, and start to work to reduce things. But we're obviously not getting that. The Democrats are getting their way on everything. One Republican made a TV appearance to say, why do we have to cooperate? Why do we have to compromise with the Democrats when we won? And according to Rand Paul and the other Republican that appeared on television, but not according to Paul Ryan, this bill funds a lot of things that Republicans have campaigned on stopping. Now, in the AP story, we get here in this little opening paragraph the big ticket item highlights. The bill substantially boosts military and domestic spending, but leaves behind dreamers and some of the border wall funding, and takes incremental steps to address school shootings. I mean gun violence. The politicians have been rushing to put this thing together, and it's apparently going to address 6 months of spending. Let's see here. Where's another detail that I wanted to talk about? On guns, leaders tentatively agreed to tuck in bipartisan provisions to bolster school safety funds and improve compliance with the criminal background check system for firearm purchases. The bill states that the CDC can do research on gun violence, though not advocacy, as an idea Democrats pushed. So, increased participation in the background check system is something that's actually going to help gun violence. Right now, it's not, I believe it's not mandatory for all 50 states to participate in the instant background check system, and that's leaving a lot of holes for criminals to slip through the cracks and purchase firearms after they've been convicted. Obviously, this is a bad thing. There's laws on the books that say ex-cons can't own firearms. Well, if they're not in the background check system, they won't get hit when they go to purchase a firearm, therefore they get to purchase a firearm. No resolution for dreamers. I see this, frankly, as a good thing, because we would rather the Democrats not get their way on this. So if it's not in a bill, it means the Democrats aren't getting their way. I don't expect the Democrats to shut down the government over Dreamers this time around because I don't think it worked for them last time. So it's probably not going to happen this time. Trump is poised to get $1.6 billion for barriers along the border. Apparently, it's going to that's enough money for about 33 of the 95 miles of border construction. Left out of the bill was funding for new Border Patrol agents. Apparently, this is a big deal. There's been an earmark that Chuck Schumer was hoping to get for a rail tunnel under the Hudson River. I guess just a spending project planned to go into New York that was probably going to win Chuck Schumer a lot of political points. Apparently, they're still eligible to receive those funds at a later date. I guess we'll see. The core purpose of the bill is to increase spending for military and domestic programs that have been sharply squeezed under a 2011 agreement that was supposed to cap spending. It gives Trump a huge budget increase for the military, while Democrats scored wins on infrastructure and other domestic programs that they failed to get under Barack Obama. And that's an interesting one to talk about. The 2011 agreement was Barack Obama's idea, and it's called the sequester, and it cut a bunch of military spending. I don't know how much spending it cut in domestic programs, but it cut a bunch of military spending. And one person that I heard suggested earlier today that we blame spending increases, especially on the military, on Obama. We have to increase spending on the military because Obama allowed the military to flounder and become enter into a place basically where they're losing a war of attrition, losing all kinds of manpower and equipment. Now, obviously, Rand Paul is going to raise a stink about spending a whole bunch of money. He's a fiscal hawk. And he tweeted, "It's a good thing we have Republican control of Congress, or the Democrats might bust the budget caps, fund Planned Parenthood and Obamacare, and sneak gun control without due process into an omnibus bill." Wait, what? Support from Trump apparently came in at the last moment, and even at this point, we don't have all of the details of this bill. I scrolled past it there, but you may have noticed that four-digit number, 2,200 some odd pages, is what this bill is supposed to be, and our elected officials are supposed to have are now going to have 24 hours to review a 2,000-page bill. Rand Paul is quoted in another place as saying that this is a lousy way to run the government. I tend to agree. I think we ought to be reading the bills that are going to be signed before they're passed. That's probably not going to happen with this omnibus spending bill. The other thing I wanted to talk about, I want to issue an apology. I'm not sure on whose behalf, but I know who it needs to go to. It needs to go to Generation Z, and I'm pretty sure it needs to be on behalf of my generation, the millennials. Because everybody and their mother now thinks that we need to up the age to own firearms from 18 to 21. Screwing Generation Z and all of the generations to come behind them. Citibank, specifically, is doing this in a new effort. First, it was Dick's Sporting Goods. Now it's Citibank. I would say that I'll never use either of these companies in the future, but I haven't ever used them in the past, so my lack of participation in their business is not going to do doodly squat. But there's... Okay, let me say it this way. I'm typically a supporter of a business's right to do what they wish. I don't want a business to be coerced into doing something that they don't want to do, for whatever reason it is. Under normal circumstances, I wouldn't want Citibank to participate in any transactions that they don't want to participate in for any reason. Normally, I wouldn't want Dick's Sporting Goods to be forced to sell products to individuals that they didn't want to sell products to for any reason. But in this case, we're not talking about participating in commerce with people because of who they are. we're talking about not participating in commerce with a group of people on a constitutional right because of something that is out of their control. Now, if Citibank were to say the elderly are not allowed to purchase firearms, if you're collecting a Social Security check and you're over 60, you're not allowed to purchase firearms. You know, what kind of policy would that be? I think we would decry that policy as discriminatory. Certainly, discriminating against certain people because of the choices that they make is one thing, but discriminating against a group of people because of what has been purported to be their danger to society, that is terrible. If you were to say black people are the most violent people in the country, so we're not going to sell them firearms. Or maybe you think that's racist, so you say, well, white people are the most dangerous people in society, so we're not going to sell them firearms. Either one of those is discriminatory. Either one of those runs counter to the Second Amendment. And I would like to apologize to all 18 to 21-year-olds on behalf of, I feel like my generation is responsible for this. I would like to apologize for people trampling all over your Second Amendment rights, your right to the preservation of your life, your liberty, and your property. Your right to participate in the preserving of the your right in participating in the security of our free state. What did 18 to 21-year-olds do to deserve this? You know, I guess if you look back at school shootings, it's 18 to 21-year-olds, isn't it? It's those kinds of people. So naturally, we're not going to sell them firearms. Because it's all about their age. It has nothing to do with any of the other things that were going on in their life. I remember seeing a master list. Don't remember where it is. I would have to scroll back through my history to find it. A master list of characteristics that either exclude you from being a serial killer or mean you have the potential to be one. This was a very long list. And if we're going to discriminate against a group of people because of a statistic, because we can't sufficiently background check them because people aren't participating in the background check system, we ought to use those statistics to discriminate against people rather than say, blanketly, all 18 to 21-year-olds are equally dangerous and they all need to be discriminated against. If we're going to discriminate against people, let's discriminate against people because of the choices that they make that put them on the path to being a school shooter, rather than saying, you're 18, therefore you are just as likely to be a school shooter as this 21-year-old, or this 20-year-old, excuse me, you cannot buy a firearm, regardless of your life choices. You're 18, therefore. I wonder what's going to come next. You know, if you're under 18, you're not allowed to buy a firearm, and I can understand that. If you're under 18, you're living at home with your parents, they can buy you a firearm if you need one. If you need one for hunting, your parents are going to buy you a firearm and give you one. You probably don't need a firearm for personal safety because you're probably with your parents most of the time anyway, and they ought to be providing for your personal safety. But you hit 18 and you're no longer allowed to buy a firearm. I'm sorry, I can't understand that. These are the most vulnerable people in our society. Some of the most vulnerable people. Because, let me explain why. You know, children obviously are vulnerable, but they're living at home with their parents, and their parents are supposed to be taking care of them. So what's the next step after you're living at home with your parents? Is you're living on your own. Many people living on their own for their first time. Many people living on their own for the first time in a strange place, because what do you do when you hit 18? You leave home and you go to college. Many people not only living at home, living alone for the first time in a strange place, many people hundreds if not thousands of miles from home. In a place that they're totally unfamiliar with, in a place where they don't know where the bad parts of town are, and we're going to say you're not allowed to purchase and carry a firearm for protection. Why? Well, because people that just happened to be the same age as you have shot up schools. We have teenagers that are marching on Washington demanding that their rights be taken away. And we have businesses falling in line behind these yahoos. I can't understand it. I'm sorry, I try, but I can't understand it. That's going to do it for this video. I hope that you enjoyed. If you did, leave a like, hit subscribe, hit the bell for notifications so that you don't miss a single video. Another one's coming up tomorrow. It is again about the gun control issue. I will be talking about this until the gun controllers go away. Spoiler alert, they're not going to go away. I'll continue to cover the breaking and important issues of the day. I'm just telling you, we're not leaving this one behind. I'm not going to sit idly by while our Second Amendment rights are taken away and trampled on. Again, thank you for watching. I hope that you'll come back next time. Until then, good night, have a great weekend, and God bless.